Bangkok is more than a destination. It's an experience that demands your attention. On the surface, it looks like the city everyone imagines. Vibrant street food, glittering temples, colorful markets, and neon-lit nights. But spend a little time here, and another side begins to emerge. It's a place where centuries-old traditions exist beside relentless modern ambition, where wealth and hardship share the same streets, and where every corner has a story to tell. Bangkok doesn't gently introduce itself. It pulls you in and challenges your assumptions. In this film, we're going beyond the tourist highlights to uncover the rhythms, contradictions, and hidden realities that reveal what this remarkable city is really like when you slow down and truly pay attention. Shock of the rhythm. The first shock that surprises you about Bangkok isn't the heat or the traffic. It's the rhythm. This city doesn't move in straight lines or follow the kind of order many visitors expect. Instead, it flows like a current, fast, unpredictable, yet strangely coordinated. At street level, everything feels overwhelming. Motorcycles weave through impossibly small gaps. Street vendors transform sidewalks into bustling marketplaces, while buses, taxis, tuk-tuks, and pedestrians all seem to compete for the same space. At first glance, it looks like complete chaos, but stay long enough, and something changes. You begin to notice that the chaos has its own logic. Every intersection follows an unwritten routine. Every crossing has a pace that locals instinctively understand. People rarely force the city to adapt to them. They adapt to the city. That's the secret. Bangkok isn't disorganized. It's simply operating by rules that aren't immediately visible. Once you learn to read that rhythm, the city becomes surprisingly fluid. But if you resist it, if you insist on moving at your own pace, Bangkok has a way of wearing you down long before you've explored everything it has to offer. Shock of the heat. The second shock that catches you off guard is the heat. And it's not just about the temperature, it's about how completely it shapes life in Bangkok. The air feels thick, almost heavy enough to slow your thoughts. A short walk that looks effortless on a map quickly becomes a test of patience and endurance, with the sun reminding you who's really in charge. But after a while, you realize the city hasn't adapted to the heat by accident. It has been built around it. Shaded markets offer relief from the midday sun. Street vendors come alive in the evening when the air finally begins to cool. Ice-filled drinks are everywhere, not as a luxury, but as part of daily survival. Then come the sudden tropical downpours, washing the streets clean and giving the city a chance to breathe before the cycle begins again. In many places, people decide the pace of their day. In Bangkok, the climate has the final say. It determines when people work, when they pause, and when neighborhoods truly come alive. Here, the weather isn't just something you experience, it quietly shapes the rhythm of the entire city. Shock of the vertical gods. The third shock that stays with you is the way the sacred and the ordinary exist side by side, without ever feeling out of place. In Bangkok, temples don't stand apart from the city. They stand within it. Golden rooftops rise above crowded streets, while centuries-old shrines sit only a few steps from convenience stores, cafes, and busy intersections filled with traffic. At first, the contrast feels almost surreal. You might see monks walking peacefully through streets covered with billboards, motorcycles rushing past ancient temple gates, or office workers stopping to light incense before continuing to work. But the longer you stay, the more you realize this isn't a contrast at all. It's simply how Bangkok lives. Faith here isn't reserved for special occasions or hidden behind museum walls. It's woven into daily routines. A quick prayer before the morning commute, an offering left at a roadside shrine, a quiet moment of reflection in the middle of a busy day. These are ordinary parts of life. Bangkok never asks people to choose between modern life and tradition. Instead, it allows both to exist together, sharing the same streets, the same neighborhoods, and the same heartbeat. Shock of the faces behind the food. The fourth shock hides in one of Bangkok's biggest attractions. It's street food. Most visitors notice the aromas first. The sizzling woks, colorful dishes, crowded stalls, and meals that cost less than a cup of coffee in many Western cities. It feels exciting, affordable, and full of life. But pause for a moment and watch the people behind the food. You'll see hands moving with incredible precision, repeating the same motions hundreds of times a day. Woks flare with heat, knives strike cutting boards in a steady rhythm, and orders never seem to stop arriving. Every plate is prepared with remarkable speed, yet every second represents years of experience and discipline. The smiles you receive are genuine, but they often come after long hours that begin before sunrise and end late into the night. Many vendors work every day because slowing down isn't really an option. The story that Bangkok offers cheap, unforgettable food is absolutely true. But there's another story beneath it, one of resilience, relentless effort, and people whose hard work keeps the city fed. Much of Bangkok's incredible flavor doesn't come only from recipes. It comes from the dedication of those who stand behind the stalls, day after day. Shock of the double city. The fifth shock that catches your attention is that Bangkok often feels like two different cities, sharing the exact same streets. One exists behind glass walls and air-conditioned comfort. It's the world of luxury shopping malls, rooftop restaurants, elegant hotel lobbies, and international brands. Everything is polished, quiet, and familiar to anyone who has spent time in a modern global city. Step outside, however, and the atmosphere changes almost instantly. The other Bangkok unfolds on the sidewalks. Small family-run shops, food carts, plastic stools, tangled power lines, open drains, and workers grabbing a few moments of rest behind market stalls tell a very different story. Both worlds exist side by side, separated by little more than a doorway or an escalator. What makes Bangkok unique isn't that these contrasts exist. Many cities have them. It's how seamlessly they overlap. You can move from luxury to struggle in less than a minute without ever leaving the same neighborhood. The real surprise isn't the divide itself. It's how easy it is to miss if you only experience the city from inside shopping centers and hotel windows. To understand Bangkok, you have to look beyond the skyline and pay attention to the streets where most of life unfolds. Shock of the night's second script. The sixth shock reveals itself after sunset, when Bangkok seems to become an entirely different city. As the heat begins to fade, the streets wake up with a new kind of energy. Markets brighten under glowing lights, food stalls appear on corners that looked empty just hours earlier, and neighborhoods take on a completely different personality. The transformation is remarkable. A street that spent the afternoon selling electronics or office supplies may, by nightfall, be lined with vendors serving sizzling meals, selling clothes, or offering entertainment. It feels less like the day has ended and more like the city has turned the page to a new chapter. But Bangkok's nightlife is about more than excitement. It quietly reshapes how the city functions. While some people gather with friends, enjoy music, or explore the night, thousands of others are only beginning their workday. Vendors, drivers, cleaners, cooks, and market workers keep the city moving while much of the world sleeps. That's what makes Bangkok After Dark so fascinating. The night doesn't slow the city down. It changes who carries it. Behind every glowing sign and crowded market is another shift, another story, and another group of people keeping Bangkok alive until morning. Shock of small transactions. The seventh shock is how Bangkok quietly teaches you to spend without ever making it feel like spending. The city runs on thousands of tiny transactions that seem too small to notice. A bottle of water from a roadside stall, a quick ride on a motorbike taxi, a plate of noodles, an iced coffee, a snack from a market, or a small offering at a shrine. Each costs only a few baht. Individually, they barely register. But as the days pass, those little purchases become part of your routine. You stop thinking about them because they're fast, convenient, and always within reach. Before long, you realize you've been making dozens of decisions every day without giving them a second thought. That's one of Bangkok's hidden rhythms. Its economy isn't driven only by giant shopping malls or luxury hotels. It's powered by millions of everyday exchanges between vendors and customers, neighbors and strangers, each one keeping the city in motion. The real surprise isn't how affordable Bangkok can be. It's how easily those small expenses become invisible. The city never pressures you to spend. It simply makes spending feel like a natural part of living, and before you know it, you've become part of that rhythm yourself. Shock of the paused moments. The eighth shock is discovering that a city famous for its constant motion also knows how to pause. Bangkok rarely seems to stand still. The roads are busy, the sidewalks are crowded, and life moves at a relentless pace. Yet every so often, something unexpected happens. The city falls quiet. It might be people stopping respectfully during the national anthem, a crowd waiting in complete silence for a religious ceremony to begin, or a sudden tropical downpour sending strangers beneath the same roof. In those moments, the noise fades, conversations soften, and everyone seems to share the same experience without needing to speak. These pauses reveal a side of Bangkok that's easy to miss. Beneath the energy, the commerce, and the traffic is a strong sense of shared culture and collective respect. For a brief moment, thousands of people focus on the same thing, whether it's tradition, faith, or simply waiting for the rain to pass. Then, almost as quickly as it stopped, the city comes alive again. Engines restart, markets reopen, and people continue on their way. But those quiet moments remind you that Bangkok isn't defined only by movement. It's also defined by the moments when an entire city chooses together to slow down. Shock of invisible rules. The ninth surprise isn't something you see, it's something you slowly become aware of. Bangkok is guided by countless unwritten rules, and most of them only reveal themselves when you accidentally step outside them. There are customs about how to dress when entering a temple, how to greet older people, how to offer or receive money, where to stand, and even where you should never point your feet. No one hands you a rulebook when you arrive. Instead, these customs live in everyday behavior. They're passed from one generation to the next through quiet observation, gentle reminders, and mutual respect. To a visitor, they can seem subtle or even confusing. But to the people who call Bangkok home, they're as natural as breathing. That's because politeness here is about far more than smiling. It's a shared understanding that helps millions of people live together with respect and consideration. These invisible expectations create a rhythm that holds the city together. The real lesson isn't memorizing a list of cultural tips. It's learning to observe before you act, to pay attention before you assume. Once you do, Bangkok begins to make much more sense. Not because the city has changed, but because you've started to see the things that were always there. Shock of how quickly you adapt. The final surprise isn't really about Bangkok, it's about what Bangkok does to you. When you first arrive, everything feels overwhelming. The traffic never seems to stop. The heat drains your energy, unfamiliar sounds fill every street, and the pace of life feels almost impossible to keep up with. It can seem like a city you'll never fully understand. Then, almost without noticing, something changes. You stop hesitating before crossing busy streets. You instinctively avoid the hottest hours of the day. You remember which food stall makes your favorite meal, which shortcut saves a few precious minutes, and which train exit brings you exactly where you need to be. The things that once felt chaotic slowly become routine. That's the real transformation. Bangkok doesn't ask you to conquer it, it quietly teaches you how to move with it. Day by day, your senses sharpen, your habits change, and your confidence grows. And when it's finally time to leave, another surprise appears. Cities that once felt fast suddenly seem calm, almost quiet. Bangkok hasn't changed. You have. That's perhaps the city's greatest lesson. Human beings are far more adaptable than they often believe. Bangkok is often described with a handful of familiar words: affordable, exciting, colorful, and full of energy. Those descriptions aren't wrong, but they barely scratch the surface. Beyond the travel brochures and social media highlights is a city shaped by routines, traditions, resilience, and the quiet effort of millions of people who keep it moving every single day. The surprises you experience here aren't just about Bangkok itself. They're about the hidden systems that make any great city function. The heat that changes daily routines, the pace that demands adaptation, the traditions woven into modern life, and the invisible work happening behind every meal, market, and skyline all tell a deeper story. This isn't a judgment of Bangkok. It's an invitation to look beyond first impressions. If you ever visit, don't rush from one attraction to the next. Slow down. Watch how people interact. Notice the small rituals and listen to the rhythms that most visitors overlook. The more attention you give the city, the more it reveals about itself, and perhaps about the way cities everywhere really work. Bangkok will still surprise you. The difference is that you'll understand why those surprises matter.